Hello everyone, welcome to the JYD podcast, and I'm pleased to let you know that this week I had a chat with Tyler Mislawchuk, who's been to 3 Olympic Games, and I'd never spoken to Tyler before we had the interview today, and I think you'll agree the chemistry was really good. It was an excellent conversation between us, and originally we were planning it to be about 45 minutes to an hour, but we just got chatting on so many different things that it ended up going on for about an hour and 20 minutes, but I think you'll really enjoy it, and it'd be great to get some of your feedback on it. And I think I'll probably get Tyler on at another point in the future because there's still so many more things that we could have spoke about. But yeah, you'll hear that after I finish with this intro. But other than that, it's been quite a busy weekend. I managed to do a 300k ride on the Saturday and then a marathon on the Sunday. It was... Ideally, I was just meant to be doing the marathon. Entered that about 5 days beforehand. Obviously, couldn't race Oceanside the weekend beforehand, so fancied getting back into training and wanted to do some more long runs. Had a little look on the local running calendar and saw the Cromer Marathon. So I thought, why not? Why not test myself over the marathon distance, get a decent long run in, not kill myself, but just use it as a solid run. And then after I entered Cromer Marathon, I was speaking to my friend John Felwell, and we decided, and he needed to come to mine to pick a gravel bike up because I talked him into doing the Tracker 360 gravel ride, which, to be honest, we're both well over our heads with. We've never done a gravel race before, never really done any gravel riding, so apart from when we've taken a wrong turn on a ride in New Zealand. So this is going to be probably a shock to the system, I think you could say. We're totally unprepared. We have no idea on what kit we should be using, but because he needed to come down and pick the gravel bike up, we thought, why not do a really long ride in preparation for the Tracker 360? So on the Saturday, we had a 300k ride planned. Well, actually, it was a 390k ride with a bailout option that could make it about 300 kilometres. And I was expecting John to take the bailout option, if I'm totally honest. But 200k's in on the Saturday, I was like bonking. I remember getting to the cafe at about 180k and I could feel my legs, they were like heavy. And I'm thinking, Jesus, like I'm not even halfway yet. Anyway, started off and about 200k in, I just felt really low on energy, like carbs, like depleted. And I was just hanging on to John's wheel, and I remember just grinding, like I was just focused on the back wheel. And I was thinking I could ask him to slow down, but I'm not going to go through the humiliation, and I'm not going to do that to myself. I'll just take one for the team and I'll just suffer in silence. So I was suffering for like 40k, something like that, until we got to my parents' house. At this point, I wasn't going to do the marathon the next day. I'd already decided 40k's beforehand that I was going to do the half marathon. I told John that, told my parents that, and then while I was at my mum and dad's tucking into some scrambled eggs and vegetable soup, one of my friends, who was Lee Cook, who was actually best man at my wedding, he rang me and he said, good luck for the marathon tomorrow. I said, mate, I'm not doing the marathon. And he said, you're a fucking pussy. And I said, oh mate, I can't, I've bonked on the ride, like I feel terrible, my legs are like bad, I don't think I can do it, I'll do the half marathon. He said, you're a fucking pussy, I'm losing respect for you, you need to do the marathon. And I said, all right, I'll do the marathon, I'll just cruise it round and just use it as a long training run. He said, no, you can't do that. He said, you got to get stuck in. You haven't got to go like do it really hard, but you've got to do it pretty hard. And I don't want any less than a 2:35. He said, you haven't impressed me for a long while now, and I'm losing respect for you. So you need to do this. And I thought, oh my God, like I don't even know if I can run a marathon without my legs are. But anyway, I had a second wind on the ride back home. Got home and got my head round to the thought of doing a marathon. So I decided to enter the marathon. Well, decided to enter it. I didn't enter it. I kept my entry for the marathon as it was and did it. I remember ended up leaving late to get to the start, but thought, well, no worries. I'm just gonna cruise it anyway. And my mate Lee told me the day before that it was a 2:40 you needed for a championship entry in for London. And all that means is basically you run under 2:40 and you can start behind the elites. So it gives you a clear entry, and you're with loads of people that would be running anything, I guess, from 2:20 to 2:40. So it'd be pretty good, and you guaranteed basically an entry into London. So I thought, well, 2:40 would be good. Turns out on the day, when I was speaking to people there, it's actually 2:38 what you needed. I decided that I wasn't going to do much of a warm-up because I'd ease my way into it, and to be honest, the thought of running 42k's kind of brought a tear to my eye, so making it any longer of a warm-up and cool-down just was not going to happen from me. So I did a few strides, 15-second pickups. I think I did 3 or 4 of them. My legs actually felt surprisingly good considering what I'd done the day before. And thought to myself, 2:38 is what I need. I looked on the course map the day before and they actually advertised it as 500 metres long. So I kind of thought to myself, well, I need to be on 2:36 pace to guarantee that I run 2:38. So was thinking just knock along at like sub 6 minute miling, sub 3 minute 45 Ks, and hopefully I can pick it up in the second half. You actually start off with a 2K climb, right as literally when they say go, you take a 40 meters right turn and then into a 2K climb, which is pretty grim to be honest. But went up that 6:09 for the first mile considering the climb, and I'm like, oh, actually, like I'm surprised because obviously having not done really any warm up, I wasn't expecting to be able to run at a nice pace from the start. So I thought, well, this isn't probably going to be too as bad as expected. Ended up getting over that, feeling all right, legs come around a bit, and I ended up running with a guy that was doing a half marathon, and we were just popping 5:40s, 5:35 miles, and I was getting some time in the bank here. And then he turned off at 10.5K. I was then by myself, and it got to about 30K, to about 25K, I remember 15-mile marker, and you took a left, and then it was like a headwind for the next like predominantly 11 miles back towards the finish, and every time going up a hill, felt a bit grim to be honest. I remember looking down at my watch at some points and seeing 4 minutes 20Ks, and I was like, oh my god, this is horrific. I didn't really want to look at my watch anymore after that, but yeah, it wasn't too bad, and ended up finishing it in just over 2 hours 34, which after 300 kilometers on the bike the day before, 7,000 kilojoule day, I was actually really pleased with. And my legs now, we're on Tuesday, feel horrific. I actually feel like I've done an Ironman. So if anyone hasn't done an Ironman but you've done a marathon, I'm guessing the feeling that you get after doing a marathon is extremely similar to what you get in an Ironman, because I feel like I've been abused. Like, they feel horrendous. So that was a bit of a recap from my weekend. To be honest, it was a great weekend's training. It was one of them weekends that you'll remember for a long time, where you kind of, you don't really know what to expect and you throw yourself into the deep end. And I definitely recommend people to give that a go sometimes, kind of enter some events that scare you a little bit and take you outside of your comfort zone. And I'm really pleased that Lee did manage to talk me into doing the marathon, if I'm honest, because I think had it not been for him, I wouldn't have done it. Looking ahead for what's next for me, it's the tracker at the start of May, gravel ride. Like I said, 360 kilometers. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I think the distance and the nutrition and everything, I'll be okay because I've got a lot of experience for doing the long events. But riding on gravel, we don't really have any gravel where I am to train on. It's basically either mountain bike or road. So I'm just hoping that the gravel's not too technical and not too severe, and I can kind of get through it. If anyone has any tips on equipment to use for gravel, just like the best wheels, best tyres, send them over, because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I'm a complete novice on that. I'm not going to really say too much more because obviously the podcast was such a long one. Just let me know your feedback, guys, and I really hope you enjoy it, because I did. I found it awesome, and if you know anyone that you think would be a good guest to come on, let me know. It doesn't necessarily have to be a triathlete. Anyone in the swim, biking or run area that you think would have an interesting story, or just someone that you'd like to hear from, let me know, and I'll try and reach out to them, and we'll see if we can get them on. Hi guys, welcome back to the Junkyard Dogs podcast. I'm joined by Tyler Mislawchuk. He's a Canadian triathlete. He's been to 3 Olympic Games, I believe. Had a really good short distance career. I think you won the Olympic test event, am I right? Just a year before Tokyo Olympics. Amazing in the heat, although unfortunately Singapore didn't go your way, but we'll hear more about that in leading up. But amazing athlete in the heat. He's had a stunning short course career, been in top 5, top 10s in loads of races all around the world. I'll let Tyler give a bit more of a little intro into what his background is in triathlon and how he got into it, and then we'll have a little chat about the weekend, the races, and we'll take it from there. So give the viewers who might not know you a little bit of an introduction into how you got into the sport and what your background is.
Yeah, so those of you who don't know, I'm cousins with Lionel. So he introduced me to the sport, and
I thought when you were starting saying that, then I thought, shit, is that true? You had me on then.
Well, it's because every time you say you're Canadian to someone who knows someone in Canada, every
Yeah,
single time they ask you if you know who they are. It's like, oh, do you know Bill from Toronto? And it's like,
yeah,
that's about 2 day drive for me.
yeah.
Um, but no, I've never actually met Lionel, which is absolutely crazy. Um, but no, yeah, like you said, I've been 3 Olympics. I've been in the sport, 15 years now, but I started as an ice hockey player. Like every Canadian kid, you get put on ice skates at like 2 years old. And then I realized I'm probably not built to be a hockey player because I'm 173 centimeters and 61 kilos. And pretty much everyone was that size by the time they were 10 I was playing with. So
Is that all you are?
not quite ideal.
61 kilos.
Yeah. So,
God, mate. No wonder why you can run like the wind. Flipping heck. That's
yeah.
like you weigh about the same as like my right arm and left leg or something. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say you're just your left quad. I
yeah.
I've got up to 63 kilos before, but my body just doesn't keep on weight, and it's the worst thing to tell people because no one feels pity for you if you can't gain weight because they just go, oh, poor you. But I can't gain weight to save my life. I've done where my buddy Mike and I have done where we've eaten like 10 or 12,000 calories for a month, and we'll go up like half a kilo, and you're eating till you're sick, and you just can't put any weight on.
Wow. Metabolism like no other.
Yeah. I mean, again, you don't get any pity for that. The same way you don't, the opposite when you can't lose weight. I mean, people feel bad. You don't feel bad for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. So ice hockey, you can like people can actually fight in that, can't they? I've seen some clips on Instagram and stuff, and like, what's the deal with that? Because like, how are you allowed to just start punching someone like
So,
in the middle of the
yeah, you
game?
get a penalty for it, but which is crazy. So at 11 years old in Canada, you're not allowed to hit until that point, and then 11 years old, you're basically the rule is that anytime someone has the puck, you can smoke them.
What
So
you can
you
actually
can
punch
run at them and just hit them, no penalty. And basically, yeah, from 11 years old, fighting was allowed. You get a penalty, but both players get a penalty and they go off. So it's like if me and you decide to have a fight, neither team is at a disadvantage. We go sit in the penalty box for 5 minutes and then we're good to go again.
flipping heck. So
Yeah.
basically, you if you're a troublemaker and you like fighting, ice hockey's probably the game for you in Canada, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's, I mean, that's probably, I think, one of the reasons that I've been good at triathlon is I think triathlon takes a lot of resilience and toughness. And hockey is like it's a tough man sport. Even like coaching in that, you have extreme coaches. Like I remember being like 12 years old, and we were down in some tournament, and the the coach came in between periods to talk to us, and he took a puck and he threw it through the wall because the walls were like wooden at the rink, and saying like basically like you guys need to learn how to shoot harder, and threw the puck through the wall and then stormed out, and we're like 12 years old. So like learning to deal with like crazy people too. There's a lot of people that are nutso in this sport and tough on you, so that's definitely part of it.
So he's like an intense version of Brett Sutton, and your ice hockey coach.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. It's like, and that's every coach. It's not just like, oh, this is one coach. It's like I learned every swear word by the time I was 10 years old because my coaches were cussing out the refs.
Did you go straight to triathlon then from ice hockey?
Pretty much. Like I started running cross country like you guys have with schools.
Yeah.
They forced us to run cross country as like to stay in shape, and then I realized, okay, I'm not too bad at this. And then yeah, I learned to swim at like 16 years old, but for the reference, like when I started when I was 16, I swam a 400 time trial, short course meters in 7:58. So I've come a long way since then.
Wow. Did you say you were 15 then?
16, yeah.
16. That's actually really impressive then, because to see the improvements, because a lot of people think that if you weren't swimming, quick times as a 12, 13 year old, it's game over. But like at 16, you would have been slower than me in the water, and I'm 100% sure you would absolutely smoke me in in the swim now. So it shows, like even because 16 would be classed as someone quite late, wouldn't it, in swimming, to kind of like swim competitively, but you've obviously managed to get down to a really good level and make the front pack in loads of races. So that's
Yeah.
actually pretty interesting to
So
hear.
what's interesting there is that, I mean, I was really lucky. I got a good junior coach, but essentially is that I was the worst swimmer. Every single person, female and male, was better swimmer than me. by like a long shot. But basically, for the first 6 months, I didn't swim. So I did that time trial, and then he went, "Okay, your technique is so bad, you
Yeah.
can't swim. We're just going to do drills." So I'd swim 5 times a week. I'd do drills for like 45 minutes and then swim for 15 minutes at the end, with basically the idea of like, you've cued all these patterns. Now, like,
Yeah.
do 15 minutes of like perfect swimming, not straight like hundreds or
Yeah.
50s or whatever. But so I didn't ever ingrain the bad patterns because I take swim lessons when I was young, but like,
Yeah.
get to the other side, don't drown, or that type of stuff. But what I think my difference was I went straight into learning technique, so I didn't have like 3 years of swimming with bad technique without coaching telling you like, this is awful.
Yeah. And then how quick were you then, like a year later or 18 months? Like what were
So
you?
in a year, I went from like just under 8 minutes to I went 10:04 for an 800. So basically, I went through, which is 5 minutes per 400. So
Yeah.
I took off like probably 2.5 minutes off my 400 time.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really impressive.
But again, I was in the pool 5, 6 days a week doing drills. And like some points, I just wanted to quit. Cause I remember being in the dive tank while everyone else was in the normal pool swimming, working out. And I was just doing drills on my own in the dive tank. And some days I'd just be under the water and be like, why am I here, dude?
Yeah,
I suck.
it would feel. I bet it would feel like that, and it obviously shows then that wasn't really from swim fitness. That would have just been off the fitness that you had from the other sports, because you wouldn't have been gaining much swim fitness, would you, from doing 15 minutes? So it was just pure technique that got you that, and then obviously I bet once you started throwing in the actual proper sessions as well as getting your technique still a bit better, I bet you went down quite a bit more after that, didn't you, as well?
Totally. And one of the interesting things is like, I mean, it's the same way, like, let's say you get injured running and you're doing a heap of swimming and biking, and it doesn't take you nearly as much time to get back. It's more the neuromuscular side. So even like what's interesting is I live in Flagstaff. I don't know if you mentioned that before, but I'm in Flagstaff right now, and there's a ton of runners here. And so they're always banged up. And I've become really good friends with a guy named Luis Grijalva. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, sub 13 minute 5K runner, isn't he? Guatemalan, is he?
Yeah, he's come fourth at World Champs 5K twice, and both times Mo Katir was on the podium, who is now no longer allowed to race.
Yeah, he'll be back, won't he, next year? I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
think so soon.
next year.
But Luis has run 12:50 for 5K, but he's like incredible athlete, but great guy. But he's been pretty banged up running this last year. He tore his hamstring right before the Olympics and stuff. But what was crazy is last year he was injured. He swam, basically did no running. He learned to swim, swam every day, and basically did a few strides on the Alter G or anti gravity. And within, I think, 2 months, he came back around 12:50 for 5K. And it's kind of that vice versa of like, he wasn't doing any run stuff, but he had that
Yeah.
muscle memory, kept himself so fit that like, it was just like, just get the movement patterns down. And once you get those down, you're like flying.
Yeah, I think that's actually really true. Like, because I know when I had a run injury a few years ago, I wasn't obviously able to run, but I was doing swimming and biking. I was doing quite a lot of biking at that point. And then when I
Yeah.
came back running, within like 6 weeks, I was running really well over like an Ironman. But I obviously, when I started back running, I was only doing like a mile. My first run was like a mile or something like that. So it was
Yeah.
really slow progression, but it came back quick. But then when I have like 2 weeks off or something like that at the end of the year, if I don't do anything for 2 weeks, it takes ages to come back. But if I'm doing
Yeah.
other stuff, then the running or whatever will come back really quick. And I think, yeah, as long as you keep yourself fit, you can get the other sports. If you've got the muscle memory, like you just mentioned, for Lewis, then it comes back really, really well. So you got into swimming back then, and then when did you do your first triathlon, and how did it even come about? Because triathlon would have been like, how old are you now?
I'm 30. I just turned 30.
So back then, 14 years ago, triathlon
Yeah.
was getting fairly popular, but it still wasn't nowhere near the sport it is now. So
Yeah.
how did you even become aware of it, and what was it that made you decide to enter one?
Well, to be honest, I did my first one at 12 years old and went, screw this is way too hard. It was
Really?
like, yeah. And I was like, I hate this thing, dude. And I was like, I just want to go play outside with my friends. So
Yeah.
I did one when I was 12, like a mini try, like for kids. And I
Yeah.
went, nah, I'm good. I'm good. So I'm not like the typical triathlete who did the first one and then fell in love. I was like, nah,
Yeah.
that's way too hard. I'm gonna keep playing hockey, and I like played football and soccer, and I played like a bunch of sports. But I was just like, man, those sports are a lot easier. They're a lot more skill. Like I think as a 12-year-old, like working really hard maybe isn't the thing. Like I want to go outside and like hang out with my friends, you know? I don't want to be
Yeah.
going for a run or a ride on my own. So, fast forward a few years, I did another one. And I was like, oh, I enjoyed that more. And then I decided, I'm gonna do a little training over the summer, cross train for hockey. And then it was like the more work you put in, the better you got, especially when you first start. I know you're aware of that. Is like in the early days, it's like, man, the harder I work, the better I get. Now, for you and me, like it's not always that way. It's not always the harder you work, the better you are. Sometimes it's like the harder you work, the worse you get because we want it so much. But then it was like, okay, I put X in, I get X out, and it's totally different now. But at that point, it's like for a kid, it's like, oh, I do an extra run a week. Oh, I run 10 seconds faster in the race. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. What persuaded you? How did you end up giving triathlon another go then? Like, what was it that
So we
was it?
had this like summer games, basically all these sports that you could qualify and play and represent your area within the state or province. And I was gonna go do running because I wanted to just go and hang out for the summer. It was like a free summer camp, really. And the running trials had already happened, so I went, okay, well, what else can I qualify in? And triathlon was the only sport left, so I went, I'll give it a go. And yeah, I qualified in my area, but I got absolutely stomped in the swim. We had it was like a 200-meter swim, and I think I lost like over a minute or 90 seconds to the other kids. And then I spent the whole time trying to ride and run, catch up. So, but I mean, I wasn't like on the podium straight off the bat. Like some of these superstars, like an example of like a Hayden Wild, like he started and then he just won everything he touched. That wasn't my
Did he?
story. Yeah,
Is
he
that
was
how
just
is that
like,
what his background was like?
I mean, Hayden started Xterra and then he went like basically ITU right away. And then he was just winning everything, or like at least podiuming at a high level, like straight away. That guy is just insane. I mean, a lot of like Olympic athletes, that was, if they made it to the top, you got to be winning your kids of steel in your area because if you want to make it to the next level. And again, I mean, I eventually did, but not right at the start. It's not like, oh, I picked up swimming and I was like this fish. I think that's the
Yeah, I
mistake a lot
assume.
of people see.
Yeah, that's what I would have assumed. Like with you, and obviously, like having gone to the Olympics, and especially three of them, I in my head, I just imagined that you would have started it, picked up the swimming straight away, or even swam before you did a triathlon, and it was
Yeah.
like progression. So it's really interesting to hear, that like how you started off like that, and then like you say, at your first triathlons, you weren't even winning them, but then you got to the point where you were the favorite going a year out from Tokyo for winning the
Yeah.
gold medal, weren't you? It was you and Vincent Louis. It was all about if it was a hot day, it was going to
Yeah.
play right into your ballpark. So yeah, that's great. So once you did that, I take it you qualified to the summer camp then and did quite a bit of training there, did you? And then thought, actually, you know what, I don't mind this.
Yeah, exactly. And I finished, I think, fourth or fifth. So I was pretty happy at the time. I was pretty stoked. But same thing. I mean, I started to get to know the people, and that's, I mean, why we're all love about it now, like why you started your own community and all this stuff. Is like, man, the community of triathlon's awesome, and that's kind of like by doing that and like suffering through the start of it, I got to know a bunch of people, and they became my friends. Like, there's still a lot of guys I train with at 14, 15 years old that, I went to their wedding in the last few years, or I'm still buddies with because there are a lot of good people who do this sport. And so I think I got into it to like chase the summer camp and then kind of stayed in it because it ended up being my life and my friends and the people who I enjoyed spending time with.
I thought you were going to say you met a girl on summer camp and you kept on.
No, not quite. Yeah. No one, they were chasing the podium guys. I wasn't quite quick enough with the old speed goggles, I guess.
So, when did you start taking it? Do you think like really seriously? And did you think at that point that did you have aspirations of making the Olympics, or when did the aspirations of like making an Olympic Games like really set in? And you thought, you know what, if I really put my mind to it, I think I might be able to do that. Or did you never really think that until it actually became a reality?
Yeah, I mean, I started right after that, I started kind of training seriously. So like 16 years old. So like your year 10 or grade 10, we call it. And
Yeah.
I started training seriously. And then, yeah, basically once I got my license at 16, you can start driving. That's when I kind of, went all in because I could drive myself to the pool before high school every morning and then go to school all day and then train. And for those who don't know, I'm like from Winnipeg. So Winnipeg is like one of the coldest places on earth. Like in the winter, it's like minus 40 degrees Celsius.
Minus
So
40.
yeah, yeah. They cancel school once it gets to minus 40. So we'd have canceled school like at least 10 days a year where it was colder than minus 40
Flipping heck.
because the
What?
buses
How cold
basically
would it
couldn't
get?
start. And so they couldn't bring you to school. So it was
Jeez.
like, yeah, we would
How-
just, some mornings if we knew it was cold, we'd be checking that weather app going, please, please, please.
Yeah, because it's minus 37. You're going to be flipping freezing, aren't you? And it's
Yeah,
school's still on. What does it get to in the summer then? Would it get hot in the
plus
summer
30.
or plus 30?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest weather changes in the world. But like,
Wow.
for example, like 6 months of the year, you would train inside. So I'd go swim in the pool in the morning, go to school, and then go back to the indoor track where my bike trainer was set up, bike indoors, and then run laps. So for like years after, I had issues of balance because I ran on like what do you call it when it's on an angle track?
Oh,
Bank track.
yeah, yeah. It was on Camber.
Yeah, so I ran on a bank track for basically all of my running, all my easy, and because there was no other options at the time. But I became so lopsided that when I go outside, I would feel like I'd be turning left because my
Yeah.
body was just like torched up.
Flipping heck, you must have been mentally tough then, like to train indoors like that for 6 months of the year to just like ride, because there was no Zwift then, was there? It's just literally riding,
No,
mind-numbingly boring, just
no.
getting it
You know
done.
what's funny is like Saturdays would be our hill day, and we had one of the dads on the team build a just basically a wooden block, and we'd put our bike wheel on top of the block, so our bike angle is at like 45%, and we just pretend we were climbing up a hill
Yeah, I'm
because
laughing because
yeah,
I used to do exactly the same thing with like the phone book back
really,
home,
yeah,
like putting a few books underneath the front wheel to simulate going uphill as well back in the day.
yeah. I have no idea if anything does, or it was just like, oh, we're today's hill day, so we're gonna put this wooden block under your wheel and
Yeah.
go ride for 2 hours.
But it's really impressive then. So like you took it seriously when you were 16, 17, but the fact you've been to three Olympic Games, so within 5 years of that, where you just started driving around and taking the training seriously, you were in Rio.
Yeah, I was the
Like,
youngest guy in Rio at 20, I was 21 when I raced. So me and Christian are kind of the same year, but I was younger, but we both raced there and we were the youngest guys.
wow. Did you get a big motivation then after watching London? And did you think, were you even thinking at that point that Rio was even a possibility? Because you would have only been taking it seriously for a year.
No,
Like,
I no chance. I 2012, I was like 2 years in. I was like still a junior. I was still under 19s.
yeah,
I remember I had a treadmill in my basement set up, and the treadmill only go to I think it's 10 miles an hour, so that's not that quick. It's 345 a K, I think, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, it is, yeah.
But so for working out, I would just set it at, it could go to 15 or 20% incline. So I would do hill sprints at 15 or 20% incline at 10 miles an hour. And I remember having a poster of Brownlee and Gomez on the wall running in any race. I mean, in that time era, they were racing each other every single race. And I thought about like sprinting against them, like probably 100 treadmill runs over the years, just doing that. But that wasn't like, that was like a dream at that time. It's not like, oh, I'm actually going to be there.
Yeah.
It's a wild journey. But what was crazy is when I finished juniors and was like looking to travel and, try to give this thing a go, like the Canadian national team coach at the time, I basically had a call with him and I was like, this was 2014. And I was like, I want to try to go to the Rio. And he was like, your name and Rio don't belong in the same sentence. Um, and
Is
I
that
was
what he
like,
said to you? Did that
yeah.
fire you up, or did that make you think
Oh,
like,
I was so pissed. So at the time they were like, you got to go train with this coach. And he was in Australia with like most of the guys. And I went, pardon my language, I went, screw that, like I don't want to go coached by that dude. If he doesn't believe in me, then I got to figure another way. So that's at 19. I moved to Hong Kong because at the time a Canadian coach was coaching their national team. And essentially they had a program that you could be a training partner and they would pay all your expenses, food, flight, ACOM to basically train and make the environment a better place. And so I could go do these races. So I took that up, moved to Hong Kong, and then ended up beating a bunch of the guys who were on the national team. And then the coach came back to me and was like, hey, yeah, I really think you should join. Maybe you do have a shot at Rio, you know? So,
Who were you supposed to be a training partner for, like at that time? Can you remember?
yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them. One of them's an assistant coach named Arthur. One's Dixon. One guy named Ivan. We call him Crazy Ivan. I don't know if you know anyone from Hong Kong. He's actually good buddies with Mike Phillips. But there
All right.
was,
So
five or
these
six
weren't.
of them.
They were Hong Kong athletes, not actually Canadian athletes in Hong Kong. Then, so they were like,
So they were the Hong Kong national team, and so I
oh,
went completely outside the Canadian system because
yeah,
I basically said like, oh, if you don't believe in me, then screw off. I'm gonna go do my own thing. And so it was me and basically 6 or 7 Hong Kong athletes trained together, and their coach was just Canadian, but he was coaching the Hong Kong national team.
oh, was he a good coach? Did that improve you a lot, being able to do that?
Yeah, and I think it was my first time. I was in university at the time, and so it was my first time being away. I was taking some online courses, but being full-time athlete, which I
Yeah,
mean, the difference of like being in school or being, working 25 hours a week on school and to nothing. Like I just had full focus and he was really good. I mean, it was just nice to be away from Winnipeg weather because that was in January. I could train outside. I was like, man, this is way more enjoyable. I get to ride my bike outside
yeah.
than be on the wooden block.
So then this coach got back in contact with you, and he's like, actually, you know what? You do have a chance. Like, we're gonna we want to we want you to come and train with us. We think you're going to be in there with Rio. And then what did you think then? Did you end up going with him, or did you still kind of stay outside
So
the sport?
I ended up crashing and breaking my jaw, and all these teeth are fake. So I needed like facial surgery. So I had to go back to Canada anyways. And then at that time, they basically said is like, hey, come to Spain. We're gonna pay for everything and just give it a try. And with federations, like you kind of listen because they do have your fate in your hands. And so
Yeah,
I remember going to try, and one of the funniest stories when I started with them was we went motor pacing, and this coach at the time was like, I think, gonna try to teach me a lesson. So there was like, it was me and like in the group at the time was, I mean, there were so many studs. It was like Aaron Royal, Ryan Bailey, Jake Birtwistle, Brennan Sexton, Irish athlete named Brian Keane. Like we had so many, and then we had a bunch of Canadian guys too. It was like a really good group I joined. Um, but he took us out motor pacing and was like essentially like, yeah, we're gonna go hard. So he motor paced us, and we, rotating off the bike, and ended up riding so hard he dropped 80% of the group, and I was still left, and we finished, and he was like, "They don't ride like that in Hong Kong, do they?" And I was like, "Well, I don't think you ride like that here because 80% of your group is gone, and I'm still here." So the first day, it was like he tried to teach me a lesson, and like it was one of the hardest rides, and I was like determined. I was like, I ain't getting dropped because I got something to prove, but it was
yeah,
just funny the carnage of and it kind of reminded me like we talked about my hockey coaches of being like a hard ass. And
yeah,
so it was kind of like I liked it because I was like, I gotta, step up and, you know,
yeah. And
rise
the
to the
fact that
level.
all those guys got dropped, you must have been thinking, well, I'm doing all right here. It's not like I'm over my depth because those guys
Yeah,
could keep up anyway. So it wasn't like you were the weakest, was it? And they kind of rode off and left you. It was like you probably had to stop, wait for all the group to catch back up.
yeah. So, but there's so many good stories among those years. I mean, from no training, you train long enough and you got so many goofy and funny stories. But yeah, and then that basically I joined that group and kind of the rest is history. I made that first Olympics, like really kind of out of nowhere, you would say. In my last three WTSs, I basically came ninth, 10th, ninth to qualify a third spot for or second spot for Canada and ended up, going. So no one wasn't really on anyone's radar. I'd say a year out even.
Wow, no, that's a really good story to hear. How you kind of started in the sport and then, like, obviously just took it seriously just before London, and then by Rio, you're actually there. Like, that's
Yeah.
not people. I don't think in any sports that have that kind of progression. Um, Now going back to like where we are now, like, how did you find Singapore? Because obviously you've had a change now. You've had your short
Yeah.
course where you went to three Olympic Games, and now you're throwing your hat in the ring a bit in the non-drafting races, and managed to get a call up to Singapore, which is a huge opportunity, isn't it? Being a T100 race, and
Yeah.
obviously you can get a contract there. You're laughing, really, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit rough weekend for both of us, eh? Big weekend for triathlon, Oceanside, Singapore, Abu Dhabi, like so many big races. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't planning on really doing T100 to be honest. I did my first half distance ever in January in Pukan, against some pretty good guys down there. Like not a crazy big field, but racing Jason West and Manuel Masais, who's the big guy TU guy, and a bunch of other really good athletes. Ended up winning that race. So I think T100 saw that and we're like, well, he outran Jason, who's not last year was still the number one ranked runner. So I think they gave me a shot. And to be honest, like I was in quite good shape, but I mean, as you know, that doesn't always translate on race dates. Something was wrong with my stomach and just a bad day out. Like not even zone 2 on the bike, and I was zone 1 running. Like I finished the race to finish the race out of respect
Yeah.
for getting a wild card, but I wasn't competing at all. Like I threw up with 200 meters left in the swim, so
Oh,
something wasn't quite right. Like I got out right at the front with the leaders, like right with Vincent and all that, and I was like fifth on the bike through like lap 1 or whatever, and I was just it was a ticking time bomb if you throw up that early in a race that hot and you can't take any carbs. I didn't take a single carb in the last 2.5 hours of the race.
wow. Going back to the swim, how hard was the swim? Like, because it was hot, were the top swimmers thinking we're going to take it out hard and put people into the red? Because obviously, if you're swimming outside your depth in hot water, you're just going to completely blow. Or do they think, I'm a good swimmer, I'm just happy to be here, I'm just going to cruise? Like, what is and did you speak to any of the people before the race, like the top, the guys that are likely to take the swim out, and do they tell you like, oh, this is our game plan because they know you're a good swimmer as well, and that you'd probably be likely to form an alliance with them, or is there
Yeah,
no talk and you don't really know what to expect?
I knew they were going to swim hard. I mean, I kind of talked to a few guys before, and I knew that the pace was going to be solid. I mean, the thing is, I think they didn't want to swim too hard to blow themselves up, but
Yeah,
obviously you got to take it. Guys like Vincent, Max, these guys, you got to take advantage of your swimming, like why wouldn't you try to put
yeah,
60, 92 minutes on some of these guys? I mean, the swim was fast because you just look at it, the numbers. We were 23 minutes. The girls were just under 27. So
wow,
23 minutes for a 2K. I mean, they're not always fully accurate, right? Well, you know that, but
yeah,
like 23, just the time gap comparison, because you have stud swimmers in the women. Like you have Lucy swimming, like you
yeah,
have Learmouth, you have Flora, like all these girls, ITU girls, like you don't usually take 3.5 minutes out of them in a 2K swim.
no,
Um, and so that's just kind of me to tell how fast it was. And the fact that there was only 5 or 6 of us left in that front group out of the water. Um, I don't like for me the swim speed wasn't the limiting factor. My stomach was off, but
yeah,
I can tell it was fast. Like I can tell like, I'm not at risk of like dropping off, but it was fast. And I knew like right before the start, Max Stapley, for those who don't know, was like, mate, we're gonna take this out really hard. He's like, just get on my feet. And I was like, oh, okay.
I can
Because
imagine
I
him
was like,
saying that.
yeah, because in an ITU race, I would have told him to screw off, because like
Yeah,
everyone starts full gas. But I was like, nah, why not? It's hot. I'll just like, so I jumped in, kind of took a few easy strokes, and then just settled in behind him and Vincent and was like, I'm happy. And after a lap, we got out and I looked and was like, oh man, we got a gap already. I was like, this is kind of surprising. So I think they saw that too and probably put the foot down. But what the craziest thing about that was Ben Rio was right in front of me and I was going, how is this guy doing this? Like an Ironman a week ago, like I was just like, I kept thinking like, is this guy going to blow up? And then he goes and finishes third. It's like crazy.
On the swim, when you're like in the pack, like what kind of effort, or like in this race, did it feel like you were swimming? So if you were like out, just because we always wonder when we're watching it, and like you say, you never know the distances, but like if you were like swimming, say, in the pool by yourself in Flag, what kind of pace do you think you would be doing if you weren't on anyone's feet, like for the same effort that it was on the feet in
I think
that race?
110 short course meters,
Yeah,
at least. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it was fast because I can just tell with stroke rate and stuff, like the
yeah,
heat kind of throws you off, but like it was fast. And for like my threshold up at Flag is the equivalent of is basically 110 at altitude short course meters. Let's say if I'm doing a ton of 100 reps, I'm swimming like 62 to 64 seconds for yards, which is 68 to 72s,
yeah, yeah. And that's at
Um,
altitude as well. That's huge, isn't it? You're at
that's at
2,000.
altitude. And that's not for long reps, but that's if I'm swimming, let's say like hundreds on 120. And so
Yeah,
it kind of felt like that. Um, but it did start pretty quick, which I think is like a big change for. I mean, they always start quick, but I think that's the biggest change for some of these races. I mean, even in Oceanside, I mean, you got Greg Harper, you got Seth Ryder, but you got a bunch of really good guys who take it out probably harder than we would have thought 2 or 3 years ago at the middle distance, I think.
How hard do you think they are actually taking it out? Like, because I always wonder this, like, what kind of effort, what kind of, if they were like in a pool kind of thing, like, what would they be going through the first 300? Because I always wonder, like, what kind of pace would you need to go to kind of be there in amongst it kind of thing?
Yeah, I think a guy like Vincent, like he's probably going like 65s to probably at 300, he's going like 65s effort on the front.
Yeah,
Like I think at least depending on the weather and the who's in the field and that, but they're taking it out like it's fast. Like it's yeah, it's no joke. And I think that's where people can run into a mistake too, is like if Vincent's going 65s, like maybe that's just slightly above his threshold, but for everyone else it might be like high end VO2, and then
yeah,
you pay for that debt early. I mean, that's what IT racing is tough. People don't realize it's like the bikes are hard because they're super dynamic, but it's hard because you get out of the water and your lactate's like 15 because you take it out. Basically, in IT, you take it out as hard as you can. Like I literally go out as hard as I can. Through 200, I'm probably under 2 minutes, you know?
really. It's just like a. Is that just because you're getting a crappy position at the first buoy and then you're just it's game over? Because if someone loses the feet, you're going to go down with them because there's no way you can swim past all the people in front of you and bridge a gap. You know, so
It's
you
so
need to
hard to
be.
come back. It's so hard. Like the effort required is like ridiculous. I mean, just think about like let's say someone drops the feed in a 70.3, just
Yeah,
going around one person to fill that gap. You think about how hard it is. If you've got to do that 30 or 40 times,
it's just
like in
never
a
going to happen.
1500, you're done.
It's like a crit race, I guess, on the bike. From when I remember from when I used to race them, if someone loses the line, like loses the wheel when you're going around the corners and stuff, if you've just got to make a bridge a gap of one or two people, it's all right. But if you're like
Yeah.
10 people back and the person loses it, that's game over. You very unlikely you're gonna bridge that back
Yeah.
up when they're going full gas out of every corner.
Yeah.
Um,
How
when
how was the swimming like? What would you say the equivalent like? Let's say in your Ironman New Zealand. What kind of effort are you swimming at? What do you think you're going out at it versus these guys that are leading out of the water for an Ironman?
Well, I when I because I went into New Zealand with very little swim training because I was coming back from
Yeah.
an injury. I wasn't in that good a swim shape, but I felt quite fresh. So every time I was getting in the water, I felt like I could get my heart rate up quite high. Whereas I think in the
Yeah.
past I've made the problems of like doing too much swimming, especially leading into a race, and then been a bit fatigued and not being able to get that top end. So I probably swam as good as I have in the past, despite being way less fit, just because
Yeah.
I was like, quite fresh. But I reckon I probably only went out for the first 100 maybe like 112 probably pace, something like that, because it felt like I
Yeah.
was working. But I know from how hard going under a 110 would felt like I was building up a lot of lactate, and knew from what my fitness was in the pool, I
Yeah.
didn't want to go out too hard. I thought if I went out too hard, I'd blow up after 300 meters. So I kind of went out like that, and I was on the feet of the group in front, like the front group, but then they didn't really slow down, and I knew that I was going to be redlining it because that was above where my threshold was at the time. So I kind of knocked it back, and then the group that I was in, it felt like I was swimming like 120s, 122s, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, if I was in the pool, like it felt like probably like 122, 123 pace if I was in the pool by myself. But obviously with the
Yeah.
wet one, like we were probably swimming like 120, something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I reckon it felt like. Um, so yeah, it wasn't too quick, but then it was like from where my swim fitness was at the time, that was about right. I think if I was in the swim fitness I was at last year, but then feeling really fresh like I was going into New Zealand, I might have been
Yeah.
able to make that swim pack because I was about 4 seconds 100 faster at the last year in the pool. But I was actually swimming my worst in races. There were some races I lost 8 minutes, which is the worst in my career. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
swimming in the pool the best times I've ever swam, like for some sessions. So it was very, very strange. It just shows you sometimes you can be training really well, but then you can actually be racing like crap. Because I was racing terribly, but I was actually swimming really well. And everyone would say, "What's happened with your swim?" I'd be like, "I have no idea," because I'm actually swimming quite good in the pool, I think. Like, and people were
Yeah.
surprised when they would see me, but yeah, it just wasn't translating. And then when you saw me in the lead up to New Zealand, I was swimming absolutely horrifically in the pool because I done nothing, and then I managed to only lose 3.5 minutes. So it was, yeah, strange how some things work like that. Um, Going on to the bike in Singapore, obviously you were like
Yeah.
sick. You said like towards the end of the race. Did you think at that point, oh no, like this is like race over, or did you think, oh, that's not too bad, it's once, I hope it doesn't happen again, but I'm in a good position, like this game on, like it's a hot day and you're good in the heat, so did you think I just need to survive the bike, basically get in a good position for the run, and then whatever you've got left in the tank, you're gonna give it
Yeah.
some.
Well, I thought like, okay, well, just once, I'll be fine. Let's just like get on the bike, you know, find some wheels, get in the, 20 to 25 meter zone, get some nutrition in, and you'll be right. I was like, even if realistically, my game plan was like, if I come off within 5 minutes of the leaders, I have a chance because of the heat in Singapore. Maybe not in other races, but my run training and bike training, I was like, if I get off within 4 or 5 minutes of who, not everyone, but whoever's first off the bike, like I'm good to go. And so that was kind of my mentality is like, and I knew I was in shape to do something like that, but obviously, like you just talked about with your swim, it doesn't always happen that way. But
Yeah,
anytime I try to take nutrition down, I would just be like acid reflex, like kind of like a Christian Blumenfeld in Kona, where it was just like, oh no, that's not coming down. And you know, the in races, like when you have that chip on your shoulder, you have the dog in you, like you're competitive. Someone comes by you and you like try to go with them, or you do.
yeah,
It was like by like 20K into the bike, it was like I had no dog in me, and it was like that's like a nutrition deficit because my personality is like I'm super competitive, just like pretty much every professional athlete. Like someone
yeah,
comes by you, you like grit your teeth and you go, all right, I'm going to use them as long as I can, type of thing, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I
hundred.
just like I'd stay with someone for like 100 meters and be like, fuck, I can't do this. Like I
That's
was
a
like,
sign that you're not feeling that you're not your normal self, isn't it? For anyone, like if you feel like
yeah,
that, like where you've just got no fight in you and you just kind of like you haven't got it, like that's especially from that early in the race, isn't it? Where it's not like you're blowing up because you're not going to blow up 10,
yeah.
15 k's into a ride, are you? What kind of power out of interest were you doing for the first lap then? Because you said you were in like fifth, was it fifth or sixth place? You said, and at
I
that
jumped
point,
on the bike, yeah. So that was the worst part too. My power meter didn't connect. So this
oh
whole
no,
time I'm going like I don't know what if it was because it was T100 and they sunk them somehow in the heart rate and that, but like I've never had that problem before, but it didn't connect. But I'll tell you, it wasn't that high based
yeah,
on like just sensation, speed, everything like that. And like, I mean, it would have been low, and I'm a small guy too, right? Like I don't push crazy big numbers.
yeah,
Like I'm a small CDA without even testing, just because I've got a small body frame. Like I watched some of your aero testing stuff earlier this year when you were asking the guy testing you like why can't I get like lower CDA than there was a cyclist doing it, and it was like whatever I do I just can't get as low as him, and whether it's like your shoulders or whatever, but like at 61 kilos, you can get pretty aero. Like I seen Tom Bishop, who's a small guy too, like post, I don't know if you've seen that, post a CDA of like just incredibly small. And it's because he's just such a tiny guy.
yeah. So that was Harry from Evolve, and who was on the bike when we were doing the testing there, and yeah, his CDA is really low, and he's so narrow in the shoulders. That's why he can do it. But he was actually at the velodrome when Tom went and doing some of that, and he was telling me that Tom's got a really low CDA. So I'm sure if you tested, yours would be incredibly low, because yeah, 61 kilos. You're not going to punch a very big hole in the wind. Um, what was it like then for the rest of the ride after that? And when you got off the bike, what position were you in? And did you still think there was any chance of salvaging some kind of result from this race, or were you kind of like, this fucking sucks, I'm a wild card, I want to finish just so it doesn't reflect bad on me? Do you know what I mean? Like, not that it would, like, not that it should,
Yeah.
because you will, but I know what it's like. If I was a wild card there, I would kind of think like, if I don't finish, this might put me in bad stead of getting a wild card one in the future. Whereas if I kind of take one for the team, finish it, even though I'm feeling like crap and I know it's not the best thing, hopefully it will allow me to get another wild card further down the line, and I can do myself justice when I'm not ill and get a decent result and validate it.
No, from the second half of the bike, I was like, it was not racing. It was like survival. It was like a lot of mental games. And I was still ahead of some guys. Like Sam caught me about halfway, and
Did he
a
say
guy named
anything?
Yannick.
Did he
What?
say anything? Did he say anything when he caught you?
No, I said something to him. Because I was like, in my head, he was still, like charging. I was like slowly getting worse and worse, you know? So I was like, go get him, buddy. Like, and anytime I'd see him, I was like, you know, I'm just always so impressed with that dude. Like, just watching him race by himself and just like, not by himself, but like in these races, like he's isolated and just like that never say die mentality. Like, you gotta respect it, you know?
You should have barked at him.
And he didn't really say anything, but I could hear him breathing. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, that's a guy who's able to push, you know? Because, like, you couldn't hear me breathing because I was just like, I'm nothing, you know? It's brutal. So I'm in, like, I got rode with Fred Funk for a bit when he went by me. Fred's a good buddy of mine. He's a good dude. And then, um, you know, there was Nico Mann was behind me, and I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm still, you know, I'm not at the back. And these things, there was only 19 racers, right? So that's the tough part. They're best in the world. It's like I've never, you know, finished last in a race before, and I was like, well, at least I'm, you know, I'm not last place. And then my last lap, Nico pulls off and pulls out of the race, and I'm going, oh, fuck. I'm going,
Oh no.
oh God. And then I was just like, okay, look, just get off the bike. And then I was like, you know, maybe you'll come right, and you're a strong runner, and like you can maybe, you know, salvage a good run time and just look good that way. And then I got off the bike and was like shooting pains in my stomach still, even though I hadn't had any carbs. And so I start running. I was like, okay, well, you know, this whole time, you're like, as an athlete, you're just reasoning with yourself. You're like, just go a bit further, maybe it'll turn it around. But
Yeah.
when you haven't had carbs in 2 hours, you really turn it around. So I started the run, and I was like, oh, you know, like my legs feel fine because I haven't been able to push hard, but my stomach hurts and like I got no energy. So I start running, and I run by, I think it was Hannah Berry and her partner, who I just met this weekend.
Yeah.
And they were like, you look great. You look relaxed. And they're like, you and I looked at them, I went, I don't feel relaxed. And they go, you look smooth. And I go, yeah, it's because I'm running 5-minute K. It's easy to get smooth.
That's like such an American thing to say, even though they're not it. Because I've been at some races, I've been going like shit, and they've been like, "You go, you look great," and I'm thinking exactly the same thing. I'm like, "I'm fucking blown. I'm running 5-minute Ks. How the fuck can I look great? Like I'm 20 minutes down. Like like if I look great, it's because I was walking 2 minutes ago and I've just started running."
And I was like, yeah, I was like, they're so nice, and like I appreciate it, but I just know. Then I ran a bit further. I seen Taylor Spivey on course, and she was like, same thing. She's like, you look a lot better than the guys in front of you. And I just looked at her and said, you're the worst freaking liar I've ever heard of. So
Oh man.
I see Fred come around on the first lap, and I kind of like make eye contact with him, and he gives me a head nod. And was like, all right, we're gonna stick this out, you know.
We're in this
This is
together.
something.
I'll see you afterwards, mate. We'll have a drink and like commiserate together.
Yeah, and every lap I'd look forward to seeing him. Was like, okay, he's still out here. Don't, you know, be hard, finish this thing. And yeah, I mean, we finished, and we're sitting in the chairs after, and everyone's been there. As there's that camaraderie and like going through it with someone, you know, you're going through your own battles, but you finish it off. And I'm sure anyone listening to this can relate to that, of just having an absolutely terrible day, and you finish, and it feels way better to finish, even if it's a terrible day. It feels so much better to finish a race like that.
That is 100% true. Yeah, it does feel so much better to finish, and
Yeah.
at least then you can look back on it and be like, "Oh, I'm glad I kind of like got through it." And you do feel like you've kind of, if you've got through that, you think to yourself, "God, on a day where I'm feeling good, I could actually do something really good." Because it kind of does make you. It's kind of like you have to be pretty tough to put up to kind of battle through that, don't you? Because you're not doing it for any. There's no money to gain. There's no. It doesn't look. It's not like you're getting like credit from your sponsors or from anything. It's just you battling it out and you're feeling crap. Whereas when at least when you're in a good position and you're hurting, you're in a good position and you're like racing for like to try and win a race or to try and podium or something, aren't you? Whereas
Yeah, there was
there's
nothing on the line for me other
nothing.
than self-respect and like doing the race justice. I was worried they were going to take down the finish line at one point.
Were you the last person to finish in the end?
Well, yeah, because Yella pulled out, Nico Mann pulled out, Kyle Smith didn't start. So I mean, I finished 17 of 17. But like, this crazy part is like the two guys in front of me are Fred Funk and Vincent Louis. Like, you look at that, could be any 70.3 podium in the world.
Yeah.
That's what we were laughing about. Like, you take a snapshot of any three guys at any position in the race, and you're like, oh, that's a solid podium.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. Um, after, you know, when you're in these T100 races, like after the race and stuff, is there good banter between and camaraderie between the athletes? What do you do afterwards? Did you go out? Do you guys like meet up and go out, have a few drinks and in the hotel, or is it kind of like that's it after the race? Everyone's doing their own thing. They pack up and leave. Like,
No,
what's
there's a crew that went out. So me and Sam Long, we had to leave at 5 a.m. the next day, and we didn't get back to the hotel till 9 p.m. But
Jesus?
they got a little VIP section after, and you can grab some food and socialize. But a few of them went out. There's a really nice like rooftop bar, and a few of them went out and got drinks, and that would be me 9 times out of 10. But when you get back to the hotel and you're leaving in like 9 hours and you got to pack your bike, uh, there's only time for hotel beers. There's no time for going out to a rooftop bar and just having a drink or two. But a lot of these guys too, I know from ITU, right? Like half of these guys are ITU guys that I grew up racing, and then the other half is I've never met them before. I only know
Yeah.
Fred from meeting him once before, and like we're friends online. But a lot of these people like have racing each other for like 10 or 15 years on the ITU circuit.
Is it quite nice in a way that you've got some of your mates that you were racing with in ITU, but then now there's like a chance to kind of race and meet other people as well? So it's kind of like a bit refreshing, but it's not like total change. You know, you still see some of the same familiar faces at races you have a bit of banter with and stuff like that who you get on with. But then there's also like this new element where there's a lot of kind of like guys that have been doing this kind of racing for a few years that have kind of got a name, and it's like, or that you can meet, and it's kind of like gives that new kind of kind of makes your career like a bit more refreshed kind of thing. It's not the same old, is it? It's kind of like you're stepping into new territory here. It's all like it's all new now, isn't it?
Totally. And I mean, and like the crazy thing is like, as most people watch, they go like, oh, Joe and Tyler would have met. And it's like, we've never met. I've never met Lionel. I never met Sam Long. All these guys who like, you guys have been at the top of long distance and we've been at the top of short course. Like you don't cross paths with people. Maybe if you're lucky on a training camp, like if you're in Font or Girona, you might run into them. But most of these people I've never met. I know them as online or how their results. So it's kind of funny meeting someone, even like a Sam Long. Like I've watched some of his YouTube videos over the years. I've like known people who train with him, but like I've never met him, which feels weird, because I've known of him for 10 years or however long he's been racing.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. What do you think was the illness as well? Like, obviously, like, did you still feel rough when you got back to
Oh,
Flag, or did you feel, yeah,
yeah. My stomach's still not 100% right. But my theory is that there's obviously I drank filtered water there and bottled water and stuff, but obviously the water is slightly different. And so my theory is that maybe just a little bit of the bacteria in the water was just enough to not like make me full blown like, vomit before the race or after. But I had some night sweats like night or two before the race. And so something definitely wasn't right. And we'll probably never know 100%, but there's definitely some bacteria or something in my stomach that just, you know, wasn't wasn't agreeing with me. And I don't usually have stomach problems, so it's not like I don't think it's really a nutrition thing or people are saying the heat. Like heat is my thing, like
yeah, yeah, no, I
I've
think
never
it's
had issues. So
like,
it's kind of just a bit of a bummer because as athletes we like to know exactly what it was. I mean, it's kind of like I'm within certain that it's something bacteria in my stomach, but it's not like I have a definitive answer. It's like, oh, you got ABC wrong with you. So that's the tough part. And I did a big block going in, and maybe I did a bit too much. That I was just a bit on the run down side. Like the last 5 weeks going in, I did 25 hours, 26, 30, 31, 31 with at 7,000 feet while doing heat prep. So it might have just run me in the ground a little bit too much. And something like that maybe wouldn't affect me normally, but maybe it just got to me more than it normally would.
and also it was a massive flight. Traveling's not good, is it?
28
Like,
hours, 4 days
yeah,
before.
yeah, exactly. I think that you could have quite easily picked something up on the airport, especially like I kind of feel like when you're not like when you've been trained a bit hard as well, and you got a big flight like that. Basically you're traveling across the world, aren't you? That was pretty much halfway around the world
Yeah.
for you, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
you could have picked something up there as well, and then a day or two later, you kind of feel it. You start feeling it when you're in Singapore, but it was
Yeah.
like a couple of days earlier when you picked it up. And there's nothing you can do, is there? When you travel late into a race like that, if you pick something up, it's game over, isn't it? Really, same with
No.
what happened to me in Oceanside. I think my daughter had something like just before we flew because she was like sick at the airport, so she obviously
Yeah.
didn't catch it like on the plane, and then my first ride when I was out there in Oceanside, I was like sick. Like literally, I was riding along on the bike, and something made me sick. I was like sick.
Yeah.
I felt fantastic. I did like a 10-minute effort on the ride and felt incredible. This is a week out when I'm thinking, oh, happy days. Like if I feel like this on race day, I'm gonna feel great. And then the next day I felt a
Yeah.
little bit worse. And then the day after, I had to have a complete rest day. I woke up and I felt like I had DOMS like after an Ironman. All I did was a
Oh,
3 hour
really?
steady ride. Yeah, I'd done a 3 hour steady ride. Couldn't do the swim and the run the day before. And I felt like I'd done an Ironman when I was laying in bed. So I was like, God, this isn't right. I'm going to have a rest day. And then Tuesday and Wednesday didn't feel good. Thought, well, I'll have Thursday off because the only thing that's going to help me now before race day is feeling good. No amount of training is
Yeah.
going to help me recover. So I had a rest day on Thursday. Didn't know how I was going to feel on Friday, and thought, cross my fingers. Hopefully, I'll feel a little bit better than Wednesday, and the kind of like it's trending upwards. But I was kind of thinking the writing looks like it's a bit on the wall here. But let's try and stay positive. Uh, and then
Do you find like right before you get sick sometimes you have some of your best sessions? I've
yeah,
always found that it's like I feel amazing and it's like you kind of almost feel like a tickle in your throat and you have like a crazy session and you feel amazing and then yeah, it's like that next 2 days is like hell.
yeah, 100%, absolutely 100%, yeah. And I only realised that when someone told me that he said to me, "You'll have your best swims the day before you get ill." And since he said that to me, and I've been aware of that, that has happened like all the time, every single time. So now, if I have a really good swim, I'm like, "Fuck, I'm not going to be ill the next day, am I?" Uh, but yeah, on Friday I did like a pre-race ride, and I tried to do a few pickups. Did like some 90-second minute to 2 minute efforts, like trying to do like race pace, and that was not even race watts. But you feel that lactate feeling in your legs. And I
Yeah.
did like 90 second. I did a few of them, more of them, and I kind of did a few 30-second pickups because I thought I'll keep doing a few of them, and if I feel better, then that's a good sign. I'll do the race. But if I feel like this,
Yeah.
then I can do the race anyway. So it's not like I can overdo it. I'm either going to feel good enough to do the race, and my legs didn't come round. I got to the point where I was doing 90-second effort, like lower than Ironman power, and my flipping legs.
Yeah.
I looked at my watch and I remember thinking I've got 18 hours until I'm meant to be starting tomorrow. Like this, there's no way
It's
I'm doing
not good.
it. It's not good. Like right, that's it. I'm out. And then yeah, from that point it was out, and I just kind of made the most of it while I was out there. But yeah, that was my Oceanside kind of thing. I couldn't have
What do you
imagined.
think of the race overall then? Like obviously not being able to race is it's the worst feeling to be there and watching a race because you're just like, damn, you just put yourself in every scenario. But what do you think of the actual like the final result? Like our glorious
Oh,
king, Lionel Sanders, comeback win.
I will tell you that the atmosphere, mate, when he was running down. So like, it was interesting watching people come out of transition. Like, because I was standing in transition watching it, and
Yeah.
you see these like you feel like the gaps are huge when you're in the race, but when you're actually watching it, it was like a pack would come out, then there'd be like a little 30-second gap, and then someone else would start coming out from the next pack, and like you could see like each pack was leaving transition like just as the next one was coming into where their bikes were, and it didn't look like that big a gap. But obviously when you're in the moment and you get into like transition, I mean you wouldn't know, but I get into transition, I see all the fucking bikes are gone, you think, oh Jesus, it's gonna be like forever. But it wasn't actually that long when you watched it, like from the
Yeah.
back of one each pack to the start of like the next one. But getting onto the run, because you can't see anything on the bike, onto the run when there was Lionel chasing the guys in front, the atmosphere was absolutely amazing because you could stand right on the run course, right close to them. They're literally like a meter, 50 centimeters away from where you are, and there was
Yeah.
a wall of noise coming down, and you could see the three guys running. I think it was like Gustav Eden, Rudy Von Berg, and I'm trying to think who the
Seth, I think.
Seth. Yeah, that was it. Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause he was actually like barking at me when he saw me standing there. So he was cruising at the start. I thought he was looking good for the win, to be fair.
Yeah.
So them three were like running together, and then you could see Lionel like 20 seconds behind, and everyone was like cheering Lionel's coming. Lionel looked like fucking death when you saw him. Like his face was like just pure concentration, and it kind of made you think, oh, like flipping heck, he's digging in, here. Like,
Yeah.
do I push myself hard enough when I'm racing? Because he just looked
Yeah.
like he was like in the hurt locker, like absolutely in the zone. And then when he kind of caught the group, the atmosphere, and you were kind of thinking like, what's going to happen here? Is any of them guys going to kind of go with him or take out hard? Has he blown himself catching them? And yeah, it was an amazing atmosphere, and it did kind of really motivate you. You kind of thought, "God, I can't wait to be back out there racing." After
Yeah.
seeing that, and I was like, yeah, really fired up after watching it. I thought it was absolutely awesome.
He when he caught those guys, Seth Ryder, the guy who you were just talking about, he's in Flagstaff right now. He just got to Flagstaff, and so I like debriefed with him, and he was saying when Lionel caught them, he didn't just like do a move. He was doing like a fart like to try to get rid of them. So he was running 250 a k, then 310, then 250 a k, and that's what kind of blew Seth up a bit. Was like he thinks he like could have run faster if he just kept going, but Lionel's speed, all his speed on the track with Sam Long paid off because he was throwing in those sticks.
Yeah, he said that to me actually at the race after the race when I saw him. He said that it was like that when he was looking down, and that's interesting to hear because when you're watching it, you don't really see that, do you? Because it
No,
doesn't look much different when you watch it on the TV. But obviously, when you're running and you're actually feeling it, it's what going from 250 to 310 k pace or 320 to 250 is like a
yeah,
huge acceleration and like slowdown, isn't it? So yeah, that's yeah. Lionel, I feel like when he's in with a chance of winning, he can really take himself to the next level. Like
oh
to
yeah,
beat him, if he's out the running for a win, it's kind of like he loses the motivation and he'll like finish nowhere. But when he's like in the hunt and the win's like there or thereabouts, he can really take himself to the next level. I remember my missus saying she saw him in Texas 2015. It was a boiling hot day, and I managed to get off the bike ahead of him, and he was
yeah,
like, I think I had like 2 minutes. He got me down to 30 seconds, and I knew it was getting closer, but I didn't really want to look because I could hear the crowd, and like
yeah,
they were like cheering me, and then there wasn't much of a start, and then I could hear them, and I thought, fuck, he's like catching me, like, and I was thinking, what's my game plan going to be here? Like, do I run with him? Do I kind of like sit
yeah.
off a bit? So I was waiting for it, and he just never caught me, and then the gap started going up, and my missus said, I've never seen anyone after the race, I've never seen anyone push themselves so hard. His eyes were at the top of his head. You couldn't even see his like eyeballs properly, like, and he was just going and going. It was like it was like he was going to go and like he was going to collapse, and he did finish like a bit further back. But she said, I've never seen anyone like pushing him like look that bad, but forced himself to keep going and going, and that was back in 2015.
He's a hard man. I mean, his famous videos of like screaming and crying on the trainer is like I remember seeing those and thinking the exact same thing as you. Is go, man, I don't train hard
Yeah,
enough.
I like that
I'm like,
line.
I'm not
I,
crying like that, dude. I need to train harder.
I want to see 2015 to 2018 peak Lionel Sanders back on YouTube where he was like crying on his bike. Like, I don't want it enough. I've never cried on the turbo.
Yeah. Usually, if I'm gonna cry, I'll just get off. So I think definitely I'm not as hard as that man.
So going to having a little chat about Flagstaff then where you are. What's
Yeah.
it actually like living there? Because I mean, it is an absolute mecca for endurance athletes. Like I see so many pro runners going there for training camps. Like I think Ingebrigtsen was there last year, and he's been there quite a few times. And like you've got that Northern Arizona elite team, haven't you, from Hoka? You've
Yeah.
got the university run team where like there's some absolutely awesome runners there.
Yeah.
So do you train with any of these guys? And what's the vibe around the city? Is it quite a cool vibe with like loads of professional athletes, or is it overkill and it's a bit too much?
No, so what's interesting about Flag is there's tons of pro runners. There's like no pro triathletes. So there's like three pro triathletes in town, me, Matt McElroy, and Michael Arashida, who is one of my best buddies who I've trained with for years. Um, but basically it's a town of 70,000 people. It's like kind of a hippie mixed with cowboy mixed with university town. But you also have this weird running mecca, like you said, of just like every time you pass someone on the trail, it's like a pro runner. So like my girlfriend has gotten into running the last couple of years, and like she's a good runner, but she goes out and she just like feels bad because like every time someone goes by them, it's like, oh, that guy runs 13 minutes 5K. Oh, that girl runs 14:10 5K, And so
Yeah.
it's an intimidating place to like exercise as a runner. Um, but I mean, what's cool about here is that it's there's so many trails that if you don't want to see anyone, you don't have to. And if you want to see people, you know the trails to go to. Um, and there's that community of like Sunday everyone long run. So if you want to go long run at 4 minutes per K or 4:30, there's groups for you. Um, I mean, I'm friends with a lot of these guys too, and if I want to work out with them, I'm kind of open doors. One of the cool things is that the university coach who's famous, Mike Smith, who is coaches NAU here, he's now taking a job with Nike. So Nike's going to have a full-time pro run group that's up in Flag. So some of the guys who've graduated and or people will come over, but I mean, I remember when I first came here, it is surreal. Like, I remember running on the track and Galen Rupp was doing K reps. And for those of you who don't know Galen Rupp, he's like one of the most famous distance runners of all time.
Oh man,
Um,
if they don't know Galen Rupp, they've been living under a flipping like living in a dark room, like
yeah.
absolute legends. Like,
And I remember just being like starstruck. Like, I was like, I was like, I should get off the track right now. Like I was running 3 minute Ks or something, like pretty decent, but I was just like, I don't want to get in this guy's way. So it's been a while to get used to. But what brings everyone here is obviously it's 7,000 feet, so 2,100 meters altitude, but the trails are like endless. And the good part about being a triathlete is we have this 80 to 90 kilometer road. So it's like if you want to do the whole thing, it's 180K, and it's basically flat rolling hills on a TT with a massive shoulder, which is almost unheard of at altitude that you could just stay in TT position for, 200 Ks. Um, so I actually think compared to Boulder, a lot of people are familiar with, there's almost no triathletes here, which I find strange. Being a Canadian here, I'm kind of like, I don't get why not many more people base here because it's a great altitude. It's great for year round, and the communities are great. I mean, there's good food. There's cool pubs. It's like a good place to just hang out, really. Like I would say to anyone, be like, why not,
yeah, no, I'd love to go there. It looks awesome. I'd love to give it a go. Have you?
So you do an Ironman Arizona. Is that a
Um,
rumor on the street or is that unconfirmed rumor?
that's probably an unconfirmed rumor. I'm looking at on mine up Busso. I am like I've been. I've wanted to do that race for so many years now, but every time it gets towards near December, I'm like cooked, and then I never
Yeah.
go there and have a bit of a break and build up. But I would like to do Busso. But if I did do Arizona, I'd love to go to. I'd love to do a bit of training in Flagstaff first. It would be awesome.
Yeah, it's a 90-minute drive there. So
Yeah, no, that would be actually perfect, wouldn't it? Have you trained with any of these pro runners, like joined in some of their sets? And if so, what pro runners have you trained with, and like what kind of sessions did you do with them?
well, I mentioned before I trained a bit with Luis. They're just super chill guys, 12:55K runners, so way above the level I am. But I do some threshold stuff with them, and I'm actually thinking about in this next block, 'cause I'm going to do two IT races. I'm doing the next 6 weeks of trying to tap into some of that. But like I ran with them for the first time, and they were doing threshold up here at they were doing mile reps at 455 to or 450 to 5 minutes per mile on 60 seconds rest, which is moving pretty good. And I did the workout with them, and I remember them after saying to me like, I didn't know triathletes could run.
Really?
Yeah, because I
That's a
mean,
good compliment then.
yeah, so it was a nice compliment, and a lot of the guys are so nice in town that if I wanted to join, the problem with that is so many times they're just absolutely ripping, right? Like they're doing 200s or 400s in like 26 or 55 seconds. So I try to jump in with some of their longer stuff like threshold or tempo, because to be honest, my threshold isn't too far off these guys. It's my top end that's just nowhere near because we don't work that. So yeah, just honestly a good community, and like you go to the track on Tuesday and there's just like 50 to 60 pro runners. So it's like if you want to find people, there's people. If you want to go on Wednesday, there's no one at the track.
Sounds brilliant. I'd be there on a Tuesday. I love it.
Yeah,
What?
barking at them.
Yeah. Did you see Inga Britson train there when he was up there, and the kind of set time sessions that like what kind of sessions was he putting in? Because there must have been like people at the track when he was, and a bit of talk going
So
around on what.
he's funny because when I would see him would be like let's say I was doing a brick session on a Wednesday and I'd be running at 6:30 or 7 off the bike at night, and I'd be there and there'd be no one there, and then he would show up like at 7 p.m. and I'd be like, for sure he's running at the track to avoid everyone so he can just do his own thing, you know? I think he's one of those guys who has his training partners and just does his own thing, and like just wants to kind of be like out of the spotlight when he's training. Like, their rivalry with him and Josh Kerr is fantastic because you got Ingebrigtsen who's more like a quieter, maybe like keeps to himself more, and you got Josh Kerr who's like this outspoken like jokester rivalry. So like, and that's kind of how I see him. Like when I see him at the track, he's like with one or two of his mates. It's like at a random time when that I'm there, but no other runner is. And it's
Yeah.
like clearly he's doing it to avoid runners.
Yeah, yeah, no, he must be, yeah. Because there's not much you hear or see of him, is there? Like training, Like
No,
there is, he posts it up, but no one really knows, do they? He just turns up to races and breaks world records, and it's like,
it's
wow, what's
insane.
he doing? Like in training, like I mean, I saw this winter, he opened up his 1 mile indoor, and it's like 3:45 mile world record, and it's like Jesus, like no warm up races, no nothing. It's like, and I mean, like that kind of event is something that you would normally need to sharpen up for, isn't it? It's not like something longer where you can kind of do all the training, you can sharpen up in training. It's like hard to really sharpen up for a 3 or 4 minute event, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Without
watching some of these guys run and work out, Joe, it's like crazy. Like, there's a runner named Nico Young who just graduated from university. He went to the Olympics for 10K and came ninth. But this last winter, he ran I think it was a 450 or 356 mile at 7,000 feet altitude.
Yeah, I saw it. I've seen his videos and stuff online. He did a 26 minute something 10K while being a university student, which is just absolutely flipping nuts. Like, I mean, a university student in England would be lucky to probably break 29 minutes, and he's running 26 something for a 10K. It's just
Yeah, he's just something
incredible.
else. And just being around these people, I think, too, like, makes this place feel more special. Because you're like, if if they can do it, why not I? And not the sense that I'm going to run a 356 mile, but I think being around like high level athletes, whatever it is like, man, they're living next door to me. They're living down the street. They're training here, and they're the best in the world. Why can't I be?
I think that's part of what makes people do well in sport, because I know, like, going back into a lot of years, but I think it was probably back into the 50s when Roger Bannister broke the 4 minute mile. As soon as he broke it, like, everyone was trying to for years, and as soon as he broke it, within months, some other people had broken it, and it was almost like, if he's done it, why can't I do it? And I think
Yeah,
maybe that's one of the reasons why when I've been to Font Romeu and done some training at altitude, I've always raced really, really well after that, and it's because there's loads of like professional athletes. Like there, you go to the track on a Tuesday or a Saturday, and I guess it's like Flagstaff, where where there's loads of professional runners and everyone's training there, and it kind of like you see all the others, and it kind of motivates you, and you kind of you do see them, and I do come back from there and always race really well, and you see how other people train. It does make you think like, well, if they can do it, then there's no reason why I can't. And I think when you're in racing, a lot of it is like the psychological, isn't it? Like you go to a race, and if you're really confident, genuinely confident, because there's like you can pretend you're confident on the outside, by saying you want a good result, but you've got to really truly believe that you're confident, haven't you, to really have the confidence. And if you go into a race and you really truly believe that you're going to win the race, or you're going to get a really good result, 9 times out of 10 you will, unless something bad happens, like out of your control, you punch her out of the race, or you crash
yeah.
or something like that. But if you go into a race and you're fully confident, your training's gone well, you genuinely think you can get a result, you normally always do, don't you? But you can't fake it, can you? You can't fake the confidence. You can, like, if someone asks you, and you say that you're going to do all these big things, but you don't genuinely believe it, it's not the same, is it? And
No.
I think when you do see all these other athletes, and it's probably quite good for you because you're training with other pro athletes as well. So if they go and get a good result, I'm sure at a race, and you've been training with them and you've been like keeping up with them in training, then you must know, like, well, I know I'm in good shape because this guy's just gone and won that race or podium there,
Yeah.
and I'm training with him and I'm keeping up with him in training, or sometimes I'm ahead of him, so there's no reason why I can't do it.
That was big when I was young. Like when I said to join like Aaron Royal, Ryan Bailey, these guys were ranked fourth and fifth in the world at the time. And I just thought, man, if I can keep up with them most of the time, why can't I be there? It was like I'd blow up, but I'd be like, well, I stayed with them for 80% of the session. And maybe it wasn't the best scientific approach, but it was mentally like, well, if they're fourth or fifth and I stayed there most of the time, why can't I be 15th? You know? And that's kind
Yeah.
of where I ended up rolling into. It was just like, there was no scientific approach. It was just like, well, the longer I hang on to these guys are world class, so why can't I do it?
Do you think that sometimes science is kind of like overcomplicating things? I mean, obviously there's a time and a place for some of it, but like it's almost like some people are trying to reinvent the wheel, aren't they? Whereas like sometimes you do just need to kind of try and keep up with someone, don't you? I mean, you don't want to do it
Yeah.
all the time, but sometimes I feel like people are kind of they're getting a bit soft, aren't they? They're like using their training zones and they're kind of like sticking to their own thing. Whereas sometimes you do just need to get stuck in, and you do just need to kind of like dog it out a bit, don't you? And like take it to the trenches, and try and keep up with someone and like go into the hurt locker, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've heard it years ago, and I still think it. The training is like a mix of science and art, and the art piece is the one that me and you could do the exact same program, follow the same zones, and then have two different results because mentally we're being stimulated different by the same program. And I think that is totally accurate that you need a bit of science and obviously you need to be fit, but there's the element of like training the mind within training, of doing things that are hard because racing is hard, doing things that
Yeah.
are outside your comfort zone because racing is outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, totally. And I just want to say, because the time's getting on, and I'm conscious about
Yeah.
keeping too much of your time, Tyler, because I know it's in the morning there. I've got a few little kind of games that I've made up, and
Yeah.
the first one is a winner stays on. So I'm going to give you two athletes and a race format, and you've got to say who wins, and then
Oh,
we go to the next
geez.
one. So I've got for the first one, Martin Van Riel, Vincent Louis, Olympic non-draft.
Martin Van Riel.
All right, Martin Van Riel, Gustav Eden, Ironman distance.
Today?
But top form, top form.
Oh, I think I don't know, dude. They're so both good. I think Martin. I mean, what he just
Who
did
you?
was incredible.
You
But
think Martin takes the
are we taking this year or like Gustav's peak?
Gustav's peak?
Oh, that's tough because I think Martin by the end of the year is
Yeah.
going to be better at Ironman than he is
Who you?
right now. Yeah.
All right, yeah, but do you think Martin at the end of this year would beat peak Gustav?
Gosh, I don't know, dude.
You've got to pick one. You've got to pick one. There's no right or
Um,
wrong because we don't know.
yeah, let's go Martin. Just
All
because
right,
he's just recency bias.
Martin Yee, T100.
Ugh. Yeah, how much time gap does he need? Like how much is
Yeah,
he chasing down? You seen some of those workouts for London? He could have a couple minutes and get
yeah,
back. I think if they're 1v1, I think Martin, but I just think that because he hasn't been on the TT bike at all. From my knowledge,
yeah,
I don't think he's been on a TT bike ever. So I think it's for me knowing and like it takes a while to like figure out the TT. It's just a different muscle group, especially if you've never done it.
yeah. So you're going to go with Martin for that. So Martin's staying on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Martin Blumenfeld, peak of each peak fitness, half marathon running.
I think it
Peak Blumenfeld,
Yeah, I think Peak Blumenfeld takes it. I think in a fresh marathon.
half marathon in a half marathon.
Oh, I think he takes it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's close. I think it's
yeah.
close. You're
He
gonna
had some
clip
dog
me,
in
and
him
you're
in
gonna do me
Tokyo.
so dirty. You're gonna get you hate people hating me.
He had some dog in him though, didn't he? When he was in Tokyo, like when he took on Yi and Wild, didn't he? In that last
Oh
like
yeah,
flipping 800 or whatever it was. All right,
yeah.
that was interesting to hear the things. Quite tough, isn't it? And then I've
Do
got
you
the
agree?
last one.
What do you agree with or disagree with on any of them?
Um, I
The
think
Gustav
peak.
one?
Oh, man, that is flipping tough. That is flipping
Yeah,
tough. Like I think if it's peak at the moment from what we've seen, like of each one at the Ironman, then I would probably say Eden. But if we're going at the end of the year and Martin gets better, then I think it's flipping tough.
yeah.
Um, what would you say? What the only one that I would disagree with, but I probably didn't say it enough at the start, would be if it was peak fitness and it was Van Riel, Vincent Louis, Olympic non-draft. I might go for Louis, but I didn't really say it was peak, did I? It was kind of like led to kind of go as it
Right.
is.
Yeah, I would go in like next week or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So, but it's
yeah,
tough.
and
I mean,
also Vincent. I think it would be really close. All
yeah.
these are like actually really close. That's the
I
problem.
tried to make it pretty hard, so it was like, and then the last thing that I've got is make your best ever triathlete. This is over the distance, non-draft, 70.3 T100 distance, when they were in their peak. So whose swim would you want, whose bike, and whose run, and whose racing brain, racing IQ. So if we start with a swim, this is over a 70.3 T100. Doesn't necessarily have to be someone that's done one. It could be a triathlete that you think would do shit hot at that discipline. And this is,
Richard Varga,
yeah, so
easy,
this would
light
be
work,
peak Varga swim. What was he like in his peak then when you were trying?
crazy.
Was he? Like
Yeah,
compared to like
crazy. Like I just know he like the times he did in the pool and like all that. And he led every swim, and I think he was going at like 80%.
Really? He was that
Yeah.
good that he could just lead it? Like, what kind of times would he hit in the pool then when he was in his peak? Like, what's the rumors like of something
I think
that
he
he's
was like just like not too far off Olympic standards for 1500 meter. Like he
what, so he
was,
could break 15 short course meters probably.
I think he was close. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's
I think
literally
you take him for sure.
so for him taking out a first 200 at 2 minute short course meters pace is like he's working, but he's like he could keep that going for another 5 minutes if he wanted to. So he could just it wasn't too much difficulty for him leading into the first buoy really.
No, no. And I mean, all those years he was teaming up with the Brownlees too, right? They were all working together.
Was he on their paycheck? Do you think? Like, do you think he was
Yeah,
like?
I
Yeah,
think so. I don't know, but I would think, or just taking care of their boy, you know? Like if I was them, I'd be
yeah,
taking care of my boy.
yeah. I think I watched London recently. This is like during this winter, London 2012. I was on the turbo. It
Yeah.
was a shit day outside, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna have a throwback. London 2012 Olympics, and he's fucking backstroking on the swim at one point, letting them catch back up to him before he carries on. That's in the Olympic Games, mate, in
Yeah.
London.
That's what I'm
Uh,
talking about. And I raced him for, a lot of years in ITU. And like that start was like, it's freaking crazy.
and then the bike. Whose bike are we going for? T100 70.3 bike, non-draft. Who was an absolute weapon?
Oh, God. The bike is hard. I know. So I already know the run. You're taking Alex E. Who, like, you're not betting against Alex E in a half marathon, you know?
You reckon?
Fresh.
You're going for Alex Yee, are you?
Who are you taking?
For the run?
Yeah.
I mean, after seeing like some of his workouts recently that he's done in the
Yeah.
way up to London, like 30Ks at like flipping 3 minute K pace,
Yeah.
it's like pretty hard to bet against that.
The only the guy who I think of like in their peak who you'd put him in there too would be Alistair
Oh yes, yeah,
on the run. Like he oh if it was 10K I'd flip a coin. But we never saw peak Alistair at middle distance because I mean he said it his injuries and stuff he wasn't able to run as much. So that would have been fun to see. Um, but I think you take Brownlee's IQ. Um, I
dude,
think
the
I'm taking
bike, mate.
Brown.
You've got the bike though. You've still got to go for the
I
bike.
know. I don't know who I'm taking on the bike. I don't know enough. Who are you
But
taking?
it
I
can just
guess.
for the bike. Um, so we're going T100 distance, aren't we? 70.3
Yeah.
distance. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to going off currently how people are going. I mean, Dietlev's got to be
Yeah.
looking at how he's done in some of the races. I mean, it would be hard to bet against him. I mean, I don't know like who else could potentially be there. Who's like
Laidlow or him,
absolute,
really, right?
yeah. Who's an absolute shit hot cyclist that you've raced against when they were in their peak on this on the draft legal side? You know, someone that you
Um,
knew was, like had so much power and could really like top end to close a gap.
I mean, Hayden is one of them. I mean, he showed it on the weekend. Hayden is a beast on the bike. I mean, Peak Alistair and Johnny. I remember like being in WTS races and watching them two-man break away from a group
Yeah,
of 40 guys. They were crazy on the bike. I mean, there's been so many dudes. The hard part with short course, in my experience, is like you don't know who's saving themselves more and
yeah.
who's like, just riding their tits off, basically.
It was such a shame that we never saw peak Alistair take on, some like a 70.3. Like when he was around that 2012 to 2016 time when he was
Yeah.
absolutely annihilating fields. Like I would
Oh,
have maybe he would have been stronger on the bike. Who knows? Because we never
yeah.
saw it. And obviously, because I don't race it's hard to get perspective of how hard people are pushing in short course racing when you're watching it on the TV, isn't it? You
Yeah.
just don't get that. Whereas in the T100 and like non-draft racing, you know when someone's pushing hard on the bike because the gap's just going up and up, and
Yeah.
trying to get that perspective, you can see the paces a lot more because it tells you. So yeah, but you would have said Brownlee's racing IQ, would you? Because
Maybe or Jans, to be honest. I think you have to pick like those guys are all in the conversation for greatest of all time. There's like probably four or five guys, and so any of them, like I think again, you don't know what their level of race IQ is compared to how much they're just way better than everyone
that's what I
else,
was thinking. Like because it's easy to look like you've got really good racing IQ when you're a level above the people that you're
Yeah.
racing because you can make mistakes, but you can recover from them. Whereas like when you're like it's when you're not got the fitness, if you make a slight mistake, that's it. It's game over, isn't it? I would have said like Brownlee though. Sometimes he like would put in surges that didn't necessarily make sense, but he was just so good that it
Yeah,
didn't
I think maybe he was just that much better than everyone. That's what it's so hard to say. And I mean, but you'd have to put them in the conversation because they are in the conversation for
Yeah,
greatest of all time. So that doesn't come without a mind. It's like kind of like, I mean, the mindset too of like, let's say like a Michael Jordan,
yeah.
like maybe he made mistakes, but his mindset or IQ is like what made him as good as he was.
From your experience of training with all these people around the world and stuff, what is someone that has a really strong willpower, would train, they could be like, they're tired, but they would kind of like get it, get the work done, but also be a good motivator for the rest of the group. So, kind of like you're all training together, you're all like tired and that, but there's this one person who will like can keep doing and kind of like pump everyone up and kind of get you all through it. Who would that be?
For those of you who don't know, Ryan Bailey was a short course athlete. He came ninth at the Olympics in Rio. Um, but he was one of these guys who he worked for everything he had. He worked his ass off, and he was also the like class clown, like the jokester. Like let's say you're doing like a 35-hour week, and you're on a 5-hour ride, and everyone's kind of grumpy going up a climb. You're all just slogging. Multiple times he would get off his bike at the back and run past you with his bike over his head just to get the morale up or things like that. I remember being on a ride with him, and this is before the Rio Olympics, and we were training with Gwen in that, who ended up winning. Everyone was grumpy, so we decided we'd break away from everyone on an easy ride through the Spain fields, and we got around a corner, and we're like, when we get around a corner, they can't see us anymore. Let's go in the ditch, flip upside down, and pedal our bikes, and just to make everyone like have a good laugh.
Yeah.
And everyone was so pissed they just kept riding harder so we couldn't get back on after we got up. But he was that guy that you want in the trenches with you. He's the guy like you're exhausted and like he picks up the morale, and he was one of those dudes you would you'd want to be in the trenches with.
Ah, I'd love to chat to you more about some stories, but we've been on for an hour and 25 minutes, mate. But it's been absolutely
Yeah.
awesome chatting to you, and there's so much more I'm sure we could talk about. Like we've only just touched the surface, haven't we? But I know
Yeah.
you've got a like you're at the start of your day, and I'm towards the end of mine. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Tyler. It's been absolutely awesome. And what's next for you? Just before we go, like where will the listeners be able to see you race next?
I think I'm going to do Yokohama short course race and Italy, and then I'm going to probably jump back into some 70.3s in the second half of the year, but undecided then. But yeah, you'll see me in the middle distance world in the second half of the year. Maybe we'll jump on before then. We definitely yap a lot, so
Yeah,
we
no,
don't talk
definitely.
about anything.
Have you got any ideas of what 70.3's potential it might be on the calendar or anything? Or would it be,
There's
could we see you in a T100 if you get another call up?
If the timing's right, I want to do it right. I don't want to just take one to take one. I want to take one if I can be competitive. And by
Yeah,
that, I mean top five, where I think, not that I'm going to get a top five, but I think it's possible.
I think
Um,
you could in Singapore. I think you were just so
yeah,
unlucky, mate. I think that was
yeah,
just pure unlucky. There's nothing you could do about that. The illness just came at the wrong time, and
yeah,
you would definitely like. I was thinking you were a wild card for the win there. To be honest, like if you
yeah,
got through the bike within a good, not too far behind with the run in
yeah.
your heat, like you could have done that. So I think that was just unlucky. That was.
Yeah, that's the problem too, is now it's in my head where I got so fit and then didn't get it. So I've got to try to, rally myself back up as it's like sometimes tough to, after a bad one to, you've done all this training to keep going, I'm on the right path. It was just shit luck.
Yeah. Nah, just keep it going, mate. And yeah, so did you have you got a 70.3 that you've seen on the calendar? So I
There's
know you were
quite a
in the
few in the
process.
US. So there's like, there's one in Boise, there's one in Louisville. I've already qualified for 70.3 World, so that's possibly on the cards. Um, and maybe one in Asia to get some heat, because who knows when I could end up in Kona.
Yeah, oh, that'd be awesome, mate, to see you there. Well, hopefully we'll see you on the 70.3 race as well, because I think you've got so much potential at that, and you're only just getting started. So good luck with the rest of your season. Good luck in Yokohama, and yeah, hopefully I'll see you at a race at some point in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me on.